All these nice things we have, from cars to smartphones, are the result of a tough competition between their makers, striving to create the best product at the best price. But the world is complicated, and while in most cases competition leads to prosperity and wealth, there are areas where it can lead to a disastrous decline. Where and why does this happen, and how can it be avoided? Let's look at this using public transportation as an example. The Soviet Union was a pathetic sight in the last years of its existence. Lacking one of the key components, competition, its economy was not able to produce the most basic, everyday goods, and sometimes even food. The quality of Soviet clothing or household appliances was anecdotal, and people had to spend hours standing in lines every day, only to find the store shelves empty once again. When the empire finally collapsed, the only solution to avoid the impending hunger crisis was to immediately put the country on the rails of the market economy. On the ruins of the communist utopia, young entrepreneurs that never had the chance to study business learned through their own mistakes and created whole new branches of the economy that the country had never seen before in the span of a few years. The area of urban transport also did not dodge their attention. The Soviet Union actually had a great public transit service. St. Petersburg had the biggest tram network in the world. Moscow had the biggest trolleybus network. And smaller cities and towns also had broad networks of electric transport that were pretty up to date at that time. But New Russia had to contend with a few growing challenges within their system. People were abandoning their jobs in the ineffective industrial sector and moving to offices. Passenger flows were changing, and city governments had more vital expenses to deal with than maintaining tram tracks and trolley wires, not to mention the construction of new ones. That's when the entrepreneurs came in to fill the market gaps, and the routed taxis, or marshrutkas, were born. A typical marshrutka is a minibus, model name Gazelle, introduced in 1996. It had 12 seats, including 2 by the driver's side, but during rush hour, a few more people were able to ride it if bent into a very uncomfortable position. For busy routes, there were also bigger minibuses called Pazik, which were initially designed to transport agricultural workers via rural dirt roads. Buying one such vehicle and drawing a route number on a piece of cardboard were the only investments needed to start your own public transportation business. A small business, a backbone of the economy, an affordable business in the times of a great economic crisis and severe unemployment, and, also important, a business that brings value to society. What could go wrong? Like any other business, the main goal of the marshrutka was to make money. Minibuses were choosing to serve the busiest streets, where they had to compete with existing tram and trolleybus lines, and they were winning that competition easily. 5 small minibuses every 2 minutes seemed more convenient for passengers than one big bus every 10 minutes. Small vehicles turned out to be more agile, and they could afford to go faster and make risky maneuvers in their races with clumsy, articulated trolleybuses. Minibus owners found themselves in a much better position than municipal transport authorities. They were not obliged to fulfill social responsibilities, such as free transportation for school children and pensioners. They could afford to skip unprofitable early morning and late night trips. They used existing infrastructure and did not have to invest in constructing anything new. They didn't even have to build depots. Drivers stored their gazelles in residential parking lots near their homes. As a business, running minibuses turned out to be an order of magnitude more cost-effective than running buses or trams. Gradually, most paying passengers switched to using marshrutkas. Trams and trolleybuses were left with beneficiary passengers riding for free, and those with inconvenient and unprofitable routes that no one else wanted to serve. Soon the traditional public transit system began to fall apart. Tram and trolleybus operators, even with government support, became deeply unprofitable and could not afford to perform decent maintenance on the rolling stock or the infrastructure. The service quality dropped correspondingly, and soon the municipal transport became synonymous with horror all across the country. More and more often, trams broke down and derailed, which led to a complete stoppage of their circulation for a few hours. Servicing frequency decreased as broken and understaffed units couldn't get on the line and instead stayed rusting in the depots. Over the past 30 years, 16 trolleybus systems and 10 tram systems were shut down completely all over Russia, the largest one in the city of Voronezh, which previously had almost 300 trams serving more than 20 routes. The glorious city of Tver, which produced the modern and competitive low-floor articulated tram cars, lost its last remaining tram line in recent years. Minibuses were only glad to welcome more new passengers, and somewhere they managed to become the only remaining transport type. But if minibuses are so cheap, flexible, and easy to operate, what's wrong with them winning over complicated and expensive trams? If the minibus business model can be profitable by itself, why do we need to subsidize municipal transport operators with their big, inefficient buses? It turned out that the interest of marshrutka companies were only partially matching the transport needs of the cities. As said earlier, they only put their buses in service during the time of day when it was profitable, and after the evening rush hour ended, around 8 or 9 o'clock, their drivers went home to their families, and the city public transit essentially ceased to function until the next day. With taxis being very expensive in the pre-Uber era, people had to hitchhike in order to get home, which was quite dangerous in those turbulent times. So as with the trams and trolleybuses, marshrutkas also killed the city's connectivity, isolating some of its areas in the late evening. They also contributed heavily to congestion. Most Russian cities did not know what a traffic jam was until the golden age of marshrutkas in the beginning of the 2000s. Despite the fact that people were buying cars in order to stop depending on ugly and unreliable public transport, minibuses themselves were an order of magnitude less efficient than traditional transportation in terms of road space usage, and it was not unusual to see them queuing up and occupying a whole lane. Competition between different companies made drivers race with each other, trying to be the first to arrive at the next stop full of passengers. This was extremely dangerous and showed us perfectly, public transportation is not a place for competition. Cities are a big, complex organism. Public transit is like their blood vessels, vital for cities to function. It should be reliable and work like a Swiss watch in order to maintain the city's health. It should be inclusive and cover the needs of everyone, otherwise, some parts of the city will die. Marshrutkas are only cost-effective because they save on fulfilling these requirements. The most cheap and primitive solution is not always the best one. Running buses on schedule from 5 in the morning to midnight is expensive. Buying low-floor trolley buses that can be used for moms with strollers and disabled people is expensive. Constructing tram lines is very expensive, and under no condition will the tram win a fair market competition with the bus. Having a good public transport system is a costly task and will never be profitable, but it is required to maintain certain standards of living, and cities should be willing to pay this price. Thanks for watching this video. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like it and subscribe to this channel. See you soon.